All right, so nice to see you guys here. I'll be moderating the panel today. So, all right, would you like to give a brief introduction before we move on? I mean, I know 3 others have, but you haven't. So, would you like to give a brief introduction before we start?
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Aethir, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of GenomesDAO. We are a decentralized infrastructure of vaults that hold genomic data in such a way that when the data is queried, all stakeholders involved benefit from it. And so the best way to describe us is like a decentralized version of 23andMe, which is kind of the biggest taker in the genetic, direct-to-consumer genetic market.
Would you like to give a brief introduction as well? I mean, I know you guys have done, but it's your time to shine.
Sure. I'm Johnny Clark. I'm the Chief Business Development Officer at Aminochain, and we are a globally integrated, decentralized biobanking network.
Hi, Mark here, co-founder at Aethir. At Aethir, we build distributed GPU infrastructure for gaming and AI companies.
Hi again, I'm Michelle Boudreau, and I'm head of scientific communications at NobleBlocks, which is a decentralized science publication platform.
All right, thanks so much. I think we're ready to start. So I'm going to start with the first question. What specific problems in traditional science does your project aim to solve? How does blockchain or decentralized technology enable your project solution? Please feel free to speak first.
Yeah, so let me reason from healthcare and science. Let me start there. There are benefits for the individual, but if you look at it from the healthcare and research angle, is that essentially we keep the patient and the data together throughout the entire process. Because if you go to a hospital and you do you part with some blood, a blood sample is taken or some saliva, then what happens is you are separated from your data. So your data starts living a life of its own throughout the respective institution into a biobank. From there on further, because then the data is kind of given away to others, and you have absolutely no control over what happens further with that data. So what decentralization does is that from the get-go you basically say, okay, you have taken my sample, in our case your genetic data is sequenced, but it's given back to you right away. So you are the owner, and because it's vaulted, you can then provide it again to that healthcare organization or to that research organization, whoever wants to work with it, but you retain ownership throughout the entire process. So when the data then is surveyed or consulted, you will know about it, right? And you are also compensated if there's any commercial research that's being done with it. And on top of that, we will also continuously feed you with more information about yourself from a healthcare and wellness perspective.
Thank you. What about?
Yeah, so I'll jump off of that. So we do something somewhat similar to Aldo, except we keep the patient, the data, and the samples all linked together. So we both have a business-to-business side where we help facilitate the acquisition of these samples. So pharma and other enterprise applications that are looking to source samples, whether it be from traditional Web 2 or potentially Web 3 entities. And then we keep the patient engaged and involved in particularly their consent frameworks alongside how those samples get utilized. And then if there's monetization opportunity, we also facilitate the returns of royalties and other information packets back to that patient.
Yeah, thank you. Mark?
Yeah, so we're maybe a little bit one step removed from how we interact with the scientific community, but the way that I like to look at it is you have a very, very relevant segment of the market now that deals in GPU-heavy research tasks, right? They need access to compute, but this resource is quite often most utilized by big tech companies, right? It's difficult for research institutions to access compute. Some universities have access to their own compute clusters, others don't, but there is a difficulty in accessing this, particularly within terms that make sense for a research institution to engage with, right? No one really wants to pay a massive kind of upfront cost for a multi-year contract on a compute that may only be needed for months at a time. So what we do is we provide a much more user-friendly experience for people looking to access compute. instead of coming in and having to, again, pay exorbitant prices, large upfront costs, and then do big kind of multi-year contracts, you can come in and, maybe just get compute for a week or a month, right, with month-by-month payments. So for us, it's very much about accessibility. Yes, we're builder-focused, and I think by being builder-focused, we're research-focused, we're scientific community-focused as well.
Thank you.
So NobleBlocks is a publication platform, and there are many different fires that are going on in the scientific community right now. And one of the first ones that we're addressing is that there's large sums of money that are being funneled away from the scientific community that could actually be redirected to support much more impactful projects and facilitate, curing the diseases that these studies that you guys want to support. So that is one of the first challenges that we are addressing, and we're using tokenomics to incentivize and address that part of the publication culture.
Thanks so much. So it's great to hear that all different projects kind of focus on different problems when it comes to revolutionizing science. Again, as Ethan has spoken today at the keynote speech, funding is, DeSci is not only about funding, but there are other aspects of blockchain technology where it can contribute to the scientific revolution. So I think what Mark said, brought up by GPU computation, a lot of people think it's only for gaming and AI, but again, it can be greatly used for scientific researches, especially for researchers who need high computing power. So thanks for bringing that up. Extension of what I just said, as DeSci continues to evolve and broaden its scope beyond addressing what we have seen like funding and reproducibility issue, in what areas of direction do you anticipate DeSci to expand in coming years? So this doesn't have to be really about your project. We're here to really brainstorm how DeSci is going to be in the future. So please give your ideas freely on how it can be in the future.
So one of the things that there's a study out specifically looking at healthcare data that's published by HIPAA, and it basically says that year 2023 was the biggest year, the unwanted biggest year when it comes to the number of cyber hacks that took place. In total, 124 million people were victimized because their health records were stolen over a total of 725 cyber hacks that took place. 2024 isn't over, but already they did a comparison quarter per quarter. It's already 30% up from 2023, right? A long way of saying that I think DeSci is going to play a crucial role in cybersecurity and preventing the further leakage of these cyber crimes that are taking place at scale. The problem with the cybersecurity element is no one really knows why it is happening, right? So loads of people say, like, why would you need this data? What can you do with the data? It's not cohesive. So what everyone's trying to do is maybe trying to get into the psychology of the cyber hacker. And some people then consider like, okay, well, it's not worth to be protective over it. And many renowned institutions and very good organizations who have the best intentions, they go at it and say, listen, we want what's best for your data, so please trust us. The problem is that trust isn't enough anymore with cyber hacks growing at the rate that they're growing. So my take on it is that DeSci can also have a crucial role to play in cybersecurity, specifically when it comes to healthcare information and making sure that it stays safe.
Great insight, thank you.
So for me, I think, and I just want to make a little disclaimer here. So DeSci is a concept. Blockchain is an application in that concept, but DeSci kind of exists beyond the application of blockchain. What I think DeSci as a premise or as a larger entity will be is hopefully the operating system for science across multiple different verticals, right? So we have good examples of projects that are building in the biomedical space, publishing, AI, and compute. And I think the most important and crucial part that DeSci in its current iteration can do is create the linkers across all of these different applications in such a way as to kind of have this comprehensive protocol that science runs on, right? So whether you need to leverage proof of provenance for computational purposes, for publishing purposes, or interoperability across multiple in real meat-based institutions, that's what I think DeSci is going to be able to do. So usually when I pitch it to people, particularly institutions, is we don't have an operating system for science. Science really runs on this archaic, fragmented, almost analog system. And the hope is that DeSci will become that integrated, relatively fully automated system that allows all of us to interoperate globally and beyond.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll kind of build on that a little bit because it's a really good point, right? We have LLMs out there now, right, that are not very good, if capable at all, of creating like net new knowledge, right? They can't go out, you can't go to an LLM and say, hey, go research cancer, and they're not going to sit there and then a couple of hours later, a couple of weeks later, a couple of years later, come up with an answer. But what they are incredibly good at is analyzing the connections between data that already exists. So if you can build this kind of operating system, this collection, or a better collection of the data that's being surfaced by research teams all over the world, we now have very capable tools to extract connections and links and patterns and interesting pieces of data that maybe just purely due to its distribution would be incredibly hard for a human mind to surface. So I think DeSci in general, particularly as this operating system concept goes, is something that I think almost is an imperative. Right? We need to be better at creating these links, these surfaces for that data, particularly so we can plug them into the tools that now have the ability to kind of take that extra step towards unearthing the information that's being shared.
Yeah, thanks so much. Sharon?
So what am I getting really excited about for DeSci? So I believe if you look around this room and hear some of the comments that were made on the panel already, you can start to see that DeSci is going to begin to attract really deep thinkers. And the more deep thinkers that we have coming into this space, we're going to see great innovations and pushing technology forward. So I'm really getting excited as more people start to learn about DeSci. They're getting really upset, maybe frustrated with the way that science is operating at the moment. And once they catch wind of this, they're going to be like, okay, I'm going to where all the deep thinkers are, and I can't wait to have more of you guys around.
Yeah, Jelena, it seems like you have something to say in addition to what Mark has said. If you have, please feel free to give your idea. If not, we can move on to the next question.
No, we can move on.
Okay. It seems like you have something in your mind. Well, thanks so much. Again, this wasn't just limited to what they're doing right now, but it was more on as brilliant minds working in DeSci field, what we have been collectively thinking over, and what could be possible in the future. And I think this is a very important question to ask. So next question is, well, this is more about coming trends and all that. As you have mentioned, that DeSci is not really about specific technology. It's an application of technology. We have AI technology, deep think technology, DID, decentralized storage, all that. It's about how we're going to combine those into a system and revolutionize science. But this is one question I want to ask is about, what are most promising blockchain technologies that could drive the next wave of DeSci project? So if you're up to trend with what's going on in blockchain technology, please give us your insight on this is the new thing will drive the next DeSci movement.
So I want to say things around privacy. So another disclaimer: DeSci is often spoken about in the realm of like either publication, AI, or biomedical sciences, but there are a lot of applications of DeSci of science that have nothing to do with those. But I'm going to speak specifically in the biomedical space where I operate. Privacy is a huge concern, right? And it's an imperative to maintain. And so there's almost somewhat of a friction aspect between this concept of openly distributed systems that are permissionless and science in the biomedical space. But what I think ZK and other solutions for privacy is it can open that possibility up more, or at least reduce the barriers of friction to allow that to happen. So I think ZK, coupled with AI applications, which can then sit on top of it and source these data in a you don't need to necessarily make synthetic data, you can actually get the raw data in this way, is the most exciting next implementation of Web3 tech that I see coming on the horizon that will really push DeSci further from the realm of bioethics.
Can I be devil's advocate here? Because I don't think it's always about the new and the latest technologies. Not that that isn't needed, but I think there's a dire need for real adoption. And I think we need to be careful that we don't create this entire technology narrative all the way up to the sky with 0 users in the scientific world, right? So, and Jelani also said it when he did his presentation, it's like we need to kind of be there with research institutions, with healthcare providers, and really have a conversation and let them use the applications and learn from there, right? The worst thing we could do is be in an echo chamber whereby we're all technology builders and say, okay, software XYZ, BBBD, whatever, and no one's really using it. And I think, and that's why, DeSci that inspires is DeSci that has a real product and it has a real use case for everyone to understand, and not just for the select few that are, very involved in the blockchain. And that's not to say that it isn't needed, sorry, so I didn't mean to take down your question, but I do think it's time for that, because that will allow us to survive and to thrive.
Definitely agree with it. Mark?
Yeah, I was going to mention something on the data side. I think data provenance is massive, and you guys are very well kind of educated in that space, particularly with what you're doing. Maybe, and this falls within, in many ways, the DeSci umbrella. It's one of the, DeSci is so big that DeepIn is so big, right? And a large portion of DeepIn is DeSci and vice versa, right? In particular, there are huge advantages to distributed networks of hardware for gathering unique pieces of data, right? Weather data, right, is something that's very difficult to gather effectively in high volume within centralized ecosystems, right? And we have really cool products out there within the crypto space that are creating these weather sensors that you can put on top of your home, and you're contributing net new weather data that can then go into feeding models for better responses and better predictions of weather. So I think DeepIn is something that will feed in really interestingly into the DeSci space as we can incentivize this new avenue of generating and pulling data into the ecosystem that researchers and the DeSci community can really benefit from.
Thank you. I actually heard about that weather project as well. I actually thought it was very cool.
Yeah, so I would say that we probably don't have to leap very far when it comes to utilizing some of the existing blockchain technologies. For example, I would love to see grant applications come to light where you implement protocols where researchers are actually held accountable for their promises that they are, that they made in a grant application. I would love to see the technology be used to foster collaboration and give fair contributions to researchers on teams that are sitting globally around the world, for example, as the project that you just mentioned. I really think we could go further faster together.
So if I can just jump in, I think another really interesting thing that kind of almost comes alongside DeSci to a certain extent, but definitely needs to be reiterated, is abstraction. So to Aldo's point, you can tech up to the universe, right? But that tech needs to exist so far behind the application and the streamlining aspect that it's almost invisible. And so I think, and we've seen this over the 3 years that I've been in DeSci, is we've moved further and further along the lines of, this is the tech that sits behind it, but what's the actual use case? What's the application case? I'm sure for Aldo, when he's talking about GenomesDAO, there are gonna have people who are coming in for speculation, but you're talking about being able to own your own genetics. I don't care how I can own my own genetics, I just wanna make sure that I don't get hacked again like 23andMe, right? Same thing for the people building, the institutions building on Aminochain. We wanna be able to, or they wanna be able to share their data in an interconnected network without having to worry about why that's happening. So when we pitch, we don't talk about blockchain. We talk about blockchain here, it's DeSci story. But when I'm speaking to clients and customers and advocates and patient advocacy groups, it's we can allow you to track your samples, to become interoperable, to plug into really interesting things like IoT devices that you may not think are directly applicable to health, but If there's a weather storm that kicks up dust and that impacts my health breathing, that's super important, right? But I don't even know how that happens. I just have access to that data. So account abstraction is also a really big thing that is important. It's kind of like an anti-tech.
Yeah, so I think this question kind of brought more concerns of whether it's not the new technology that's going to drive the DeSci movement, but more of the applications of the existing products that will drive the development. So in extension of that, I'd like to move on to the next question, which is, all right, you said what's important is not about the technology, the cool technology behind, but it's about actually people using the products. So I understand many of the DeSci products cannot exist alone. It must collaborate with, like you see, a lot of you guys express yourself as a Web 2.5 projects, meaning like a bridge between traditional science and the decentralized science. So again, I assume you guys, as we two Hippocrates, we communicate with a lot of Web 2 companies, traditional healthcare companies, pharma companies, to trying to collaborate with them. I understand you guys probably go through the same. So I would like to ask, what strategies are you using to encourage adoption of your solutions to those traditional science institutions?
So we have a proposition towards the individual, and then we very much speak about owning your health, right? And owning means understanding your health, and then owning the data with it, right? So we just use the word own, and then we also become part of the wellness narrative that QGIS is also part of, and so many other tools about, listen, if you understand your genetics properly, you can live a healthy, long, hopefully prosperous life. So it's worth the investment from your end, right? There's no mention of any technology there, right? Towards the institutional side, it's all about the equitability and the transparency. So their concern, as Jelani also said, is around privacy. The privacy of data is a globally known problem. I just also mentioned the cybersecurity elements. So the institutions are driven by, okay, I need to make sure that the data is safe, that what I have here is, that I'm not going to end up in some scandal whereby I am hacked, because then my patients and donors and whoever's involved are going to get very upset with me. So we are kind of present ourselves as a cybersecurity solution, specifically for genomic data in that respect. So it's kind of, it's looking where to go. But thus far, that's our end to it.
All right. Do you have anything up to, Jelani?
Yeah, I'll just say our conversations are somewhat similar to Aldo's, but we add in a layer of, especially for enterprise, is cost recovery. And I think the automation component and some of the streamlining aspects that interoperability brings with DeSci is also a cost saving and a profit margin increasing aspect to institutional players. And so that's usually what we lead with. And then we have different applications that go to the direct to consumer, not usually us, but we'll partner with other Web3 entities to have that piece. So it's kind of a bridge between the two of us.
All right, Mark?
Shelley first. Okay, so yeah, I would say that my understanding of the DeSci space is that we haven't reached yet a critical mass. And in order for that to happen, we definitely need to raise awareness. And when we're talking about scientists generally, so as a scientist that took steps towards this space, just a few months ago, I came with very tiny steps. And we really need to work on separating the stigma that has been associated with crypto and blockchain. And until that happens, I think we're going to have an upward battle. And again, as I said earlier, we're all in the same boat. So we all need to take that conversation as part of our communication strategies, and that's where it starts.
All right, thank you. Mark?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, right? We're B2B, we serve enterprise customers, and you can come in with a cost savings, you can come in with a performance advantage, but they don't care if they don't trust you, right? And that's the most critical piece, because we are carrying that Web3 baggage along with us, right? So you need to kind of not only outcompete your competitors in all of the key sectors, you need to be over-optimizing for trust. Because if they can't trust you, if they don't believe that your project will be there at the end of in the middle of the next bear cycle, if they don't believe that you'll be able to survive the volatility of this crypto market, or if you're exposed to any of that volatility as a business, then they're very unlikely to do business with you. So trust, I think, is the key piece here.
So this is my personal curiosity. So I know Aethir has a lot of B2B clients, so I must assume that you have built those trusts very well. So I'd like to hear some strategies regarding that, to people here, how to approach those B2B clients.
Yeah, I think it's a challenge, right? I don't think there are any cheat codes to it. I think it's about education. You need to explain to your customer why you overcome these things, why you aren't going to be subject to the same issues that they may have expected from projects that have come into the Web3 space. I think at a fundamental level, you need to be optimizing for incentives that align with stability as opposed to price action, right? I think when you're looking at your token, it's very easy to kind of create an ecosystem where there's a lot of upfront bootstrapping and everyone's super excited to come in and get access to your token for whatever, in our case, maybe contributing compute, right? But if you don't have a structure that keeps compute there, right, then you're not going to be able to sell your compute to enterprise clients, right? Because they want a 1, 2, 3 year deal, right? When we're dealing with kind of researchers, that's not the case. But if we're doing a big deal with an enterprise customer, they want to buy a large amount of compute for a long period of time. So they need to be absolutely certain that the compute that they're buying that you don't own is still going to be there in 2 years. So you need to have, at a protocol level, the right incentives that optimize for this long-term stability of your ecosystem. Otherwise, you're dead in the water before you start.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the statement. There's no cheat code. Again, you just follow the track that everybody does. Every successful project leaders do. So hopefully this gave some ideas on those leaders who are starting a new project. So again, just the last question, but I think the answer has been kind of, you guys probably answered it already. The last question is, how do you see your projects collaborating or interoperating with other DeSci projects? So again, you don't have to answer, but if you want to answer, please go ahead.
So Aldo and I were just talking. So this is how interesting, and this is how I know the DeSci space is growing. So we just formed an MOU with an interesting Web2 client that is also leveraging Aldo's technology. So it was a convergence of things like, we're leveraging GenomesDAO. We think that this could plug really well into the Aminochain framework. So that's a good example of a real-world application that affects thousands, potentially millions of individuals that runs, at least to a certain extent, on 2 independent DeSci projects. And this is what begets the idea of this interoperability layer and this operating system. I think moving forward, and one thing to take into consideration based off of what Mark was saying is that how you hedge your stability, especially if you're a Web3 or you have Web3 aspects, is in being interoperable and collaborative with other persons in the space. It's almost like an index fund, right? You become more stable by virtue of making sure that you're stable and you can interoperate and lean on other participants. So if you have one business angle that doesn't quite work out, or some of your partners fail, then you can also lean on what exists as an interoperability piece with them, right? And you can also offer better features and products and applications to a wider range of individuals. I think this is one of the really successful, nuanced key points that DeSci brings, is that we can build businesses that interlock with each other, like Voltron, those of you who know, and make us all stronger overall. That's not something you oftentimes see in traditional spaces. It's really much one for all, but science is a contact sport. And I think DeSci, and hopefully in the business aspect of DeSci, we incorporate that in our structure. So I'd love to be forming more partnerships with other entities. Ethan and I have spoken, Aldo and I have spoken. We are going to speak, we'll probably speak too. And I've spoken to a bunch of other people here. I think there's an opportunity to build this interconnected way that we can all make profit and do good and still be good.
All right, great insight. Do you have any other comments?
No, 100% what Jelani said. I think it's very much looking at if you have the same use case and then grow from there. In our case, it's like we're the genomic variant of what loads of people are trying to do on another level when it comes to personal health, right? So if you look at QDIS, we're also in the wellness, but from your genetics perspective. So through an API connection, that could be similar information that can be used. So there are certain things that we're not at this moment not even aware of. But if we do properly and if we do, robustly what we're supposed to do, then it will be in the future, right? In the very near future that we can work together. It's about that interoperability. The last thing I'd say is what Shelley says. Like, we all have a responsibility to get a good product out there and to be the best case, right? To show that we're real companies and that we're serious about what we're trying to do. We're trying to impact and disrupt science for the better, and not that we're not a rock pool or whatever it's called that pollutes the crypto environment, essentially. So,
yeah, we're just here to make compute as accessible as possible. We're working with universities, blockchain clubs of these universities, a number of other different deep-in projects in the space, so very much here to support builders wherever we can, and as many of those in the DeSci community as possible, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so history is our best teacher and one of the best predictors for the future. So we should try to avoid to replicate what we've already done, and DeSci emerged because a revolution is needed. So, yeah.
All right, thank you so much for your participation. I think it was a great time trying to share ideas and what we can do from now on as well. So hopefully, again, partnership and collaboration is a huge part of decentralized science. So I hope all of the participants here will network each other and try to see partnership points and further carry on. All right, thanks so much.